Hey everybody, Douglas Blair Roberts, the Super Vader 400, Mr. The Fanboy, and of course, the Brown Skin King, come back at you with another um video series. This is the intro. This is the intro to a new wrestling rant series. This will be wrestling rants and news intro. There will be the first two. There will be rants on WWE fanboys and AEW and Impact and New Japan and other promotion haters. There will be rant. There will be news such as me giving my thoughts on the upcoming Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley match that will take place based upon what happened on yesterday's episode of WWE Raw. So yeah, that's what this intro is. The first two videos will be my rant on my rant on WWE, long overdue. Second, third rant with this style on WWE, with this new video style on WWE, and my thoughts on Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg, followed by Impact and AEW haters. So with that being said, let's get started right now. Let me show you who I am and what I'm here for. Here for. Trying to reach inside of me, trying to take my energy. Let me show you just what I'm made of. Simple curiosity, trying to take a bite of me. Let me show you just what I'm made of now. Hey everybody, it's time for my second off-camera rant. Several reasons WWE sucks. Long overdue part 3 remake and rant. This will be the 2021 version. There was one for 2020 in early last year. This is the 2021 version, which was really supposed to be done around March, around the time of the Wrestling Observer Awards, but I kept putting it off. And on. But finally, it's here. This is my rant on WWE. WWE since the Elimination Chamber time frame has been terrible and unwatchable. unwatchable. I decided to return to WWE after that awesome Elimination Chamber pay-per-view and the Bobby Lashley and The Miz cash in, and later short-lived feud between Lashley and Miz, which featured Lashley defeating Miz and eventually winning the WWE Universal the WWE Championship. The WWE Championship. And I kept watching for a couple more weeks, but then I had to watch because as awesome as Lashley and the Hurt Business was, that was the only thing good. Everything else was absolutely terrible. So I stopped watching. Watching it again. Then when he broke up the Hurt Business, which, believe it or not, I really wasn't too angry about. A lot of people were. I really wasn't too angry about them breaking up the Hurt Business because I eventually saw them breaking up. When it comes to these stables, everybody wants the world championship, so it's going to eventually lead to dissension amongst the group. And as long as Shelton Benjamin, one of my all-time favorites, still wrestling and working for WWE, as long as Shelton Benjamin would eventually become a WWE, as long as he would eventually become a future challenger for Lashley's belt and remain in that spot. He's gotten much better on promos. And could be a good transitional champ. He could win the championship only to quickly lose it to someone else. Quickly lose it to someone else, or don't have him win a championship, have him be a challenger, but just a mainstay of Raw. Now he's barely even back on television, back to main event and the lower card shows and house show matches for him until he's eventually released from his contract. But he disappeared from television. Jeff Hardy was a jobber. Jeff Hardy, who could be a good challenger for Lashley. That's a real money-making feud. Right there could be a good challenge. He's a jobber, and not finding an opponent for Lashley. With the exception of Drew McIntyre, he's talking about give a world champion. And only McIntyre and I guess Sheamus and The Miz are the ones who want a title shot. No one else wants a title shot. And The Miz sped off to a long-running feud with Bad Bunny and later Damian Priest, which was good. But an Impact, another guy, Johnny Impact Morrison, another guy who could have challenged for that. You're trying to tell me he doesn't want to be champion? And then AJ Styles and his new bodyguard Omaz. He's just there. Don't hate him, but don't really care much. Just don't really like him either. Don't really care much for him. I don't mind him. Omaz and AJ feuding with the New Day. I didn't really want to watch that. And later the Raiders tag team, didn't want to watch that either. Then later, worse, then when I come back, Kofi, after several months of not watching, Kofi Kingston is now a challenger for the belt. So in that time, you've not built up any stars or any credible challengers. You have a full roster of wrestlers, and you've not built up any credible challengers for Lashley. But you're gonna rehash Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston and Lashley. That's barely a TV match. That damn sure is no world title match, and that damn sure is no pay-per-view match. We had that on Raw and the Money in the Bank. We even had Xavier Woods pinning Lashley clean, which someone like me would actually like if Xavier Woods wasn't doing all this fruity gay New Day stuff. Or I wasn't already sick of Xavier Woods fan. But I hate his character and gimmick and all the antics and stuff he's doing now. You had him pin Lashley clean. So then you got SmackDown. You got Seth Rollins, one of the best young guys. One of the best young guys on your roster. The best young guys on your roster. You have him feuding with Cesaro. Then you have Cesaro challenging Roman Reigns, which is good. This was something I wanted years ago, and I would care if it would have happened years ago, and I want to see Cesaro in that spot. But no, you kept putting him back in the mid-card. Then he just kept doing those lame. Then what really turned me off to Cesaro, watching Cesaro, was him doing those lame signature maneuvers, the uppercuts and that lame, terrible, gay-ass spin move he does. Spin move he does. I hate that, man. Makes wrestling look even more lame. Makes wrestling look even more lame and goofy. You see people mock wrestling, or you see dumb maneuvers like that. Sorry about that. Then you got, what else? Oh. But yeah, Seth Rollins, instead of having him challenge Roman Reigns for the belt, he's later supposedly helping Reigns in his feud with Edge. Or going to Raw and challenging Lashley for his title. They had a good mid-card feud for the United States title. They could have an even more awesome one for the WWE Championship. And the Edge and Roman Reigns stuff is good, but it just isn't interesting. That's because the rest of the show is just terrible. The Roman Reigns and Edge stuff is good, but just isn't interesting. The Roman Reigns Edge stuff, the Jackson Riker, who was Gunner from Impact Wrestling, and in Phil Shatter from the National Wrestling Alliance and Independent Circuit, and from the famous Georgia territory, NWA Anarchy, which is now just Anarchy Wrestling. Him and Elias are feuding. Speaking of that and Lashley as champion. Lashley's my number one favorite guy because he's the only guy utilized and booked the way he's supposed to. Booked the way he is supposed to. Other good things, I guess, would be, Davey Boy Smith Jr., the British Bulldog's son, after parting ways with MLW, which I didn't like. Parting ways with MLW, I wish MLW would have made a higher bid to keep him around. He was still one of your biggest promotion's biggest stars. Instead of making a higher bid, you part ways with him now. But now he's back in WWE. And while I wanted him in AEW, I heard he has problems with Kenny Omega. He has problems with Kenny Omega and the Elite. So I guess it is good that he's back in WWE. WWE needs some more than the other companies either. But I really wish he would have tried AEW, Impact, or AEW or Impact, or went back to MLW, or didn't part ways with MLW in the first place. But he's back, and that was getting the other things that I like about WWE. Still, I hated this show when it first premiered. I mean, when it first premiered with this brand new format, and that was NXT. And then here's what I can't stand: wrestlers who already learned how to wrestle, somewhere else, who spent time on the independent circuit all over the world, developing their skills and characters, are forced to go back to a wrestling developmental school and promotion and wrestle there instead of coming immediately to the main roster like AJ Styles did when he debuted in WWE back in 2016. The Rascals, this really pissed me off. In 2020, the Rascals, this was one of their breakout years for Impact Wrestling. They were tearing it up with the likes of the Machine Guns, Ace Austin, Batman Fulton, the Good Brothers, and many more. They were tearing it up in Impact Wrestling. All of a sudden, I hear news in late 2020 that the Rascals are set to part ways with Impact Wrestling because AEW and WWE are looking to sign him. WWE wins the bid and they sign him, and they buried him on NXT. They're not buried, but they're NXT Tag Team Champions. Who cares? put them on either Raw or SmackDown and have them win those belts. So burying good wrestlers who for years worked on their characters, trained and stuff, and now in WWE, instead of having awesome matches and segments like they had in Impact Wrestling, they have lame spot fest. They have lame spot fest matches in NXT. You want to see flips and kicks? That's what these guys, of course, were reduced to in NXT. In NXT. Yeah. Then you got who else is in this? Who else? Oh yeah. Then you got Eli Drake, who, much to my anger, was recently fired from the National Wrestling Alliance and is now back in WWE. Once again, another guy who immediately comes to the roster. Where is he? Where is he? He's on NXT. He's on NXT. Another guy who I didn't even know was signed to a WWE contract. I was looking at guys I would like to return to Impact Wrestling, and I looked up the bromance. Now, Jesse Goddard, he's back with OVW right now. He is the top star there and champion there back in Ohio Valley Wrestling. But his partner, Robbie E., I was like, where's Robbie E. up to? Robbie E. has been, under his real name, Robbie Strauss, wrestling for WWE's NXT. And he's barely on the program. And once again, another guy who spent a decade on the independent circuit before signing with Impact Wrestling, in 2010. In 2010, and Gruber became his own wrestler in 2010, especially in the early to mid 2009, was heavily pushed up until Anthem Sports took over, and then his role started to be lessened and he parted ways. I was hoping now that all of the big-time Impact wrestlers like Brian Cage, Austin Aries, Johnny Impact, and many more of them are no longer in Impact Wrestling. More people from the old days of Impact could return. But no, Robert Strauss came back as he's being buried in NXT, barely being featured on television. But speaking of Impact wrestlers not being used, Drake Maverick, oh, this pissed me off. When I heard WWE released all those people, I was mad, but I was like, you know what, this is all elite in Impact Wrestling's game, and boy, it was it, especially for Impact, because Impact got Brian Myers, Matt Cardona, later, much later, Heath Slater, and the Machine Guns, Carl Anderson, Rich Gunn, and briefly MVP, EC3 before he signed with Ring of Honor. Drake Maverick got unfairly fired because of a pandemic. He has the audacity to return to that company. Now he's still being buried on NXT. I barely even hear about him on NXT. Then you got so yeah, I'm sick of them misusing wrestlers. I'm not watching WWE full time until all my demands are met, and one of those demands is that the wrestlers I want to see utilized on the main show, not NXT, the main roster immediately. Then we have Money in the Bank. Like I said, Money in the Bank. When it comes to pay-per-views, I always come back for the Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber, and the Royal Rumble, followed by a couple of other pay-per-views. Let's start off with the first three I just named. I come back for these pay-per-views because these pay-per-views feature the multi-man tag team matches, and especially the multi-man elimination matches. Let's start off with the elimination matches. You have the over-the-top 30-man battle royal. It's still called the Royal Rumble in WWE. The various promotions have their own name for it. Then you have the iconic Elimination Chamber. And every man for themselves War Games Steel Dome Cage match. Then you have the Money in the Bank, the 6-way person ladder match. You have Impact Wrestling's King of the Mountain match, and the various 4, 5, and 6 ways. You have the fatal 4-way, which is one pin or submit or one person to win. The 4-way dance, which is we gotta eliminate the entire team. You gotta eliminate not the entire team, but every member to win. Every member to win. The 3-way dance, the same thing, except you're dealing with 3 competitors, and the triple threat, which is the same as the 3-way dance, only gets one pinfall and submission to win. Then you got then you got what else? What else promotion? Then what else? Oh yeah, and Killer Cross. He finally debuted on the main roster. But look how long it took. Then you got Finn Balor, who is his career has been a bust. He was one of the greatest New Japan wrestlers ever, the mastermind, creator of the Bullet Club, one of the greatest stables today. One of the greatest stables today, and one of the most talked about things within wrestling was the Bullet Club and the Elite Stables. And this guy has a stupid name like Finn Balor, and is pretty much looks like an underwear model and cosplayer on that crappy NXT brand. I heard he even wants to stay on NXT. Yeah. Then you have Money in the Bank, and Money in the Bank was absolutely atrocious. Only the Money in the Bank ladder match was half decent, and the winner caused me to shut the pay-per-view out, which is Big E Langston. Big E Langston, I was hugely high into him back in 2012 and 13. Wanted him to break away from, eventually part ways or break away from the New Day and go on his own single push. But looking back, because I was desperate for something new, a new face in WWE. But looking back, this guy is huge. He's gotten more athletic and better in the ring, but he was he's big, can barely move, and is now just a goofball with all this New Day stuff. And now they're trying to push him as a serious contender with him winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. I wanted Impact or Seth Rollins to win. So I turned it on after that. Then I hear much hours later after a long nap, I wake up and I see Cena. And they're like, no, Cena did not return. I see multiple people talking about Cena coming back. And I'm like, after all of that, that's what you bring back Cena, which moves to a new point. They've always done this. Whenever Cena is out of WWE, whether it be a movie or an injury or anything, it was usually an injury. Instead of building what you have, the rest of your roster, you take another guy to push in his place, and you bury everyone else, and you make the shows intentionally bad to make it look like when Cena returns, oh, Cena, he's saving us. He's made the shows better. You bring back Cena or some other form of legend or past established guy to bring that person back. He did the same with Triple H during his long wrestling career. He did the same with Triple H to make it seem like the product is much better. The product is much better now. And that's what I'm getting sick of with WWE. And the last but not least, everyone who is sick of AEW fans or any wrestling fans talking bad about WWE or hated the March 2021 Wrestling Observer Awards has no reason to be angry. Accept it. Every negative award they won, they deserve. And let me tell you something about Dave Meltzer. I'm now a huge fan of Dave Meltzer, but back in the day, I used to hate Dave Meltzer because he's always been since the Rock and Wrestling era, since the Rock and Wrestling era in the territory days has always been a smart. He's always been a smart, kissing WWE's butt, ignoring all the awesome matches happening in the South, and even into the 2000s, always praising WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor stuff, and just being extra hard on Impact because Vince Russo was bucking and writing, never giving them credit for anything. The last match he rated was the 2005 Unbreakable 3-way X Division main event between AJ Styles, Daniels, and Joe. Was always biased. Was always biased. All the worst awards were usually given by TNA. Worst made television show, Impact Wrestling. Worst promotion of the year, Impact Wrestling. Worst. This was up until 2014. Since 2014 and 15, WWE Raw has earned this rightful spot as the worst weekly television. That is the worst. That is not only the worst weekly wrestling television, but it's one of the worst television shows of all time. Not just the worst wrestling show. They earned that. Raw. It's the most exciting. It's also the worst of the three shows. But NXT, in my opinion, is a little bit more because that's just indie flippy midget, vanilla midget stuff for an hour. That is indie flippy stuff. The Indies, New Japan, and AEW and Impact are not indie flippy stuff. No, indie flippy kicky stuff. That is NXT. SmackDown and 2-0 Live will be your best show, but 2-0 Live, who wants to see cruiserweights, indie flippy stuff, and high flying for an hour, multiple high flying, who wants to see that for almost an hour? So the best show is SmackDown, but SmackDown is boring. It's the blue show. Nobody cares about it anymore. From 99 to 2008, when Triple H killed it by beating Edge, stealing his title, and having this reign of terror on SmackDown where no one was pushed or developed except for established stars. That was quote unquote terrible. But 99 from 2008 SmackDown was good. Now it's terrible. Just a bland HD blue show is what that is. Yeah, but Raw, every award, the Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, what gimmick, I don't know, the swamp gimmick match they had. I don't even have to see that to mock and realize how stupid that was. And they've earned it. That was the worst match of the year. And Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, which I didn't see any of them. Yeah, I agree with them. That is the worst feud of the year. And Bray Wyatt, in my opinion, has been overrated since he stepped foot in WWE. I've always said this. Of the three Wyatt family members, I always hated the Wyatt family gimmick, and I always hated that the late Brody Lee and Roy Harper were always associated with Bray Wyatt. I always said that they would be much better if they weren't associated with, if they weren't quote unquote associated with, if they weren't associated with Bray Wyatt. And Brody Lee especially showed that for the short time he was alive in AEW. Bray Wyatt, his gimmick is lame and cheesy. His work rate is poor, so if his gimmick's lame, can he at least make up for a good work rate? His work rate is poor. His mic skills are cheesy, overacting, and all he is a grown man stalker. All he does is randomly attack people and say, I have business with you now. In my opinion, was never good. Is only in the business. My opinion is only in WWE and constantly featuring top spots because his dad was a star. They don't bring up his storyline because they have different opposing characters, but his dad is WWE's Money Incorporated's Erwin R. Shyster and Mike Rotundo from the territories of the varsity of Kevin Sullivan's varsity club. He was a star. He was and is a star. And I mean that's the only reason he is in wrestling. But the Fiend is the best gimmick he has. But I thought Bray Wyatt was overrated since the day he stepped foot in WWE. Since he stepped foot in WWE. So they've earned that most overrated Bray Wyatt. WWE, they did have the most disgusting topic. during a pandemic, firing multiple people when you supposedly saw record-setting profits. They did the same thing this year. When WWE was at its most profitable, for some odd reason, they fired multiple people. And guess what? I didn't care because I'm still mad at a lot of those wrestlers for choosing to wrestle at that place and stay in that cesspool for so long. Stay in that cesspool for so long. And the WWE fans talk about how angry they are, then they're going to be back watching next week. They're going to be back watching the very next week. So I'm really sick of that. Then you have what else? Oh yeah, then you have AEW. They won all the best awards. The best match, the best feud of the year was Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. I barely saw much of that feud, but from when I saw it, it was pretty good. I can think of a lot of feuds that were probably better than that, but yeah, Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, not gonna take that from him. Orange Cassidy was the coolest and best character. Orange was one of the coolest and best characters. Actually, yeah, was one of the best gimmicks you have. The best character was the new Taz. Talk about completely rejuvenating himself. Taz, as a wrestler, I can't stand him. But he's an awesome commentator and even better manager, man. Even better manager. His Team Cage is awesome. You know, I don't like Brian Cage being associated with him. In my opinion, Brian Cage doesn't need him. Yeah, Taz was one of your best characters. One of your best characters these days. Most charismatic MJF. MJF is one of the most charismatic. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, most charismatic. Yeah. Now, the worst announcer is Michael Cole won again after several times. I don't mind the WWE commentary team. The WWE commentary team is one of the only things they've actually done right. It's the booking and the wrestlers being pushed and some other things I don't like about WWE. But the commentary team has actually been done right. What else? What else? Yeah, the wrestling observers, they deserved every award for years and years. They will always kiss WWE's butt, giving them all the awards, ignoring all the awesome matches that happen in Impact Wrestling, all the awesome feuds that happen in Impact Wrestling, all the even better matches and feuds that happen in the down here in the South in the undergrounds. They will focus on what happened internationally, New Japan, what happened in the main company, WWE, and the company of Ring of Honor. So yeah, WWE, they've earned every award. Oh yeah, Tony Khan won best booker and best promoter. He is the best promoter. Now this is a response. This is a response to the Schleg Day of Off the Rope show, or now known as RTS Central, where he said the best promoter is Vince McMahon because he makes the most money. No, the best promoter is not only the person making the most money, but the best and coolest wrestling show. WWE may be the biggest and may have the most money, but it's the worst wrestling show out there. It's the worst wrestling show out there. So, so yes, Tony Khan was. What's his name? And now, people who try to say other companies like New Japan, Major League Wrestling, and many more are better, and NWA Power are better than AEW and Impact. That's your opinion, maybe so, but guess what? When it comes to New Japan, when it comes to AEW, people are buzzing and talking about AEW. Whether you like it or not, people are talking about AEW. No one is talking about anything that happened in New Japan, Major League Wrestling. Those products are good, especially New Japan. Major League Wrestling has a good product, but I think they have a terrible weak roster. Weak roster. They've been rated by Impact AEW AEW, New Japan, and WWE, AEW especially, AEW and WWE especially. So, yeah, that's why they're talking about AEW. And New Japan is awesome. New Japan is actually a better wrestling product without the Elite, but they use some of their cool and fun factor without the Elite there. Without the Elite there, you had a fun kind of with them. The same goes double for Ring of Honor, which I don't even watch anymore. That's right after WWE. That's probably the next worst. That's probably one of the worst wrestling promotions. They have a great roster, great matches and stuff. But what's the point of good matches, storyline and stuff if you don't capitalize on them? They're the same indie work rate promotion. They were they were since their inception. What else? Yeah, the Wrestling Observer Awards. They're not the Smart Awards. No. Every award WWE has, they've earned. For years and years, they've kissed Dave must have kissed WWE's butt, giving them the awards. Giving them the awards. They haven't done anything good. The Hurt Business is not the entire show. And now you're gonna do Bobby Lashley and Goldberg, which I'm actually excited for. No, hey, I'm not gonna bash this. There's so much other stuff to bash. Goldberg is more credible of a challenger than Kofi Kingston any day of the week. Well, this has been my long rant on WWE. You don't want to hear the rest of the music? Turn the video off right now.